If you haven't already, you may be starting to hear more and more about Evergrande and wondering what it is. No, Evergrande isn't the name of a really cool theme park, although they do own 15 amusement parks in China.
Evergrande Group is the world's largest real estate borrower and is on the brink of collapse. That's why it's making headlines.
In this video, we're going to explain why Evergrande is on the brink of collapse and what it could mean for the Australian property market and what you as a home buyer in Australia can learn from this all. But before we get started, if you find this video helpful in any way, do me a little favor and hit that like button below or leave a comment for the YouTube algorithm. Just a little gesture like that can make a huge difference to the channel. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button below. Thanks you guys, it really means a lot. So what is the Evergrande Group?
Evergrande Group is a Chinese company founded by a Chinese billionaire who was once the country's richest man after his share prices went up 450% in 2017. The company employs over 200,000 people and indirectly sustains 3.8 million jobs each year. The company's massive.
But the company is swimming, or rather drowning in debt, which they're now struggling to repay. The group has more than $300 billion worth of liabilities. You can't visualize $300 billion worth of debt? Let's put it into perspective. The entire Australian economy has a GDP of around $1.9 trillion. Evergrande's liabilities are equivalent to 20% of the entire Australian economy.
So why is Evergrande on the brink of collapse?
A sustained decline in residential property in China, an 85% decline in their share price, coupled with the fact that the company has failed to find buyers for some of their businesses, has caused the company to be extremely short on cash.
Yeah, after warning investors that they were having a few cash flow problems, the group missed an $83.5 million in coupon payments on the 23rd of September, and then missed a $47.5 million bond repayment on the 29th of September. As the saying goes, when China sneezes, the world catches a cold. And Evergrande's problems have not only caused protests at their headquarters in China, and all the while the whole world is sweating. A bunch of unfinished towers being built by Evergrande have actually been demolished in recent weeks.
Evergrande has been given a grace period to make their missed September 30 repayment. The clock is ticking and their grace period is ending soon. And the likelihood of them meeting this payment is slim, since they've already missed other bond payments worth $193 million. The collapse of a company of this magnitude would send shockwaves around the world, and Australia is no exception. So, what could Evergrande's collapse mean for the Australian property market?
I think firstly it's worth remembering China is Australia's biggest customer for iron ore and other goods. In fact, an estimated $149 billion worth of iron ore was exported from Australia between 2020 to 2021, and 75% of it was bought by China. If Evergrande collapses, property development in China will be reduced, meaning less demand for iron ore. With the price of iron ore already falling in Australia, a further reduction in demand will affect Australian businesses and thousands of jobs that are sustained by the iron mining industry. If this were to happen, it could affect homeowners or home buyers that are working in these industries. I think secondly, Evergrande's debt is equal to 2% of China's GDP. So if the company does collapse, it's got potential to severely damage the Chinese economy. And at present, the government in China has a policy not to bail out private companies. So it's unsure what's going to actually happen. If they do default and go down, will the government step in like America did with Lehman Brothers back in the GFC? Or are they just going to let it ride and sort itself out?
Although Evergrande's debt is mostly in China, its collapse could cause regulatory panic and put further restrictions on borrowing. With APRA already having reduced the amount households can borrow, this will make it even more difficult for those trying to get into the property market.
It could, or it could go the other way where the banks have to give liquidity and then make it easier to not slow down the property market. We'll have to see how it's going to play out.
Many Chinese citizens have lost millions of dollars they had invested in Evergrande projects. This might have a knock-on effect, having fewer Chinese students that will be able to come to Australia, which in turn will have a negative impact on inner-city real estate markets such as Sydney and Melbourne, which are heavily dependent on Chinese students.
All these points are just speculation at the moment. We're not really sure of the exact ripple effects that Evergrande is going to have, if it collapses or if it will collapse at all.
So what can home buyers learn from the Evergrande story? Whether it collapses or not, Evergrande can teach us a few valuable lessons.
Yeah, I think the first thing to remember is don't overextend yourself. Just because the bank's going to say you've got a borrowing capacity of $1 million doesn't mean you should actually borrow $1 million. When you're buying a property, borrow what you can afford to repay comfortably. You still want to be able to go out on the weekend, go on holidays, enjoy yourself. If the bank says you can borrow $1 million, then maybe, but you know you can only comfortably pay back $200,000, then borrow $200,000.
The second is have a buffer. Having a buffer will help you deal with any unforeseen circumstances. Unforeseen circumstances can be a loss of income due to illness or even an increase in interest rates. In the case of Evergrande, it was a declining property market that caught them out.
And number three, slow is fast, as we say here, growing slowly. If you eventually want to build a portfolio of properties, buy in stages you can sustain. Evergrande's growth was super aggressive, which mainly contributed to its problems. They overgeared, overborrowed, and caught themselves out. Evergrande owns so many groups. They own a real estate division, new energy auto, property services, networks, healthcare, amusement parks, all financed by debt. Where possible, you want to minimize your borrowing. If you can put in a bit of extra deposit, try and do that to get your loan down. If you can avoid getting a car loan or pulling out an extra credit card, try and do that. Don't pile your debt up. Otherwise, it can get too late like Evergrande.
So, what's stopping you from qualifying for a home loan? Here at Hunter Galloway, we get home loans approved. So if you're looking for a mortgage broker and live in Australia, we can help. Call us on 1300 088 065 or visit us at huntergalloway.com.au and we'll see you next time.